So we had a good time at our testimony of book group last Tuesday. It was one of the things we were talking about, besides all the laughing we were doing, is that our cognitive understanding of how we experience the world makes a big difference of how we experience this thing called God. So we can all think about oneness, but how we actually experience that oneness and even understand that oneness is going to have a lot to do with how we view the world and how we understand it. So today I just wanted to talk a little bit about from the cognitive standpoint, because that really informs our emotional and physical and spiritual experiences. And so I wanted to begin actually with where we started in January. In January we started with the movie Shawshank Redemption. Was anyone here in January hearing those talks? Oh, good. So I have to totally repeat myself. And basically the metaphor was the prison was earth, duality. Duality is the prison. And we want to break free from the prison, from the dualistic world into heaven. And he has this rock hammer, and he's creating this tunnel in the wall. Nobody knows. And it's a little tiny tool, and I was likening that to the mantra, and just using this mantra over and over. Nobody knows you're using it, or you can tell it's just keeping it to yourselves throughout the day, and slowly, days, weeks, and months, and years. It took them 19 years to complete that tunnel to freedom. So it's an incredible amount of patience. It doesn't happen overnight, but we stick with these little tool, just one little tool, whatever that tool is. A mantra is a good example. We continue at it, and we break free. And then we also talked about that in the meantime, during those 19 years when he was working with that one mantra over and over, day after day, month after month, year after year, he was also bringing in that light and creating a better prison experience. Like he created this wonderful library, the biggest library on the prison system. So he was bringing greater light, but it was still in this world of duality. And this is actually what we hear a lot in some of the base teachings, theologies of our world's religions, that ultimately this still will be earth, that what we want to do is move to heaven. So in Buddhism, one of their Four Noble Truths is life is suffering. We're here. In Hinduism, it's Maya, it's illusion. This is all an illusion. What's real is on the other side, is in the transcendence, beyond duality. Jesus said the poor will always be with us. Lay your treasures up in heaven. So we have this energy of always seeking that transcendent state because this world is the prison. Years ago, when Julian was first born, I was reading Ramana Maharshi. And he is an Indian guru from the 1900s. And I had heard his name from Ken Wilber. And so I just thought I'd start reading him. And I went through a period where I wasn't working as a minister. It was from September to December. And Julian was born in that same year, 2004. So I was just basically nursing all the time and reading this book. And it took me 4 months to read the book, and the book basically said the same thing over and over and over again. So it wasn't getting a lot of intellectual stimulation. It was just saying that all there is the I am, that this is all a big dream. And if we just continue with who am I, we'll discover everything will start dissolving. This illusionary world will start dissolving away, and we'll start seeing what's real. And so what Ramana Maharshi says is, this is basically like a dream. So he likened it to when we dream at night, we don't wake up in the next day and spend all day trying to fix our dream. We would think that's crazy because the dream is just temporary. It comes and goes. We don't want to put all this energy and invest it to fix the dream. So he was saying the same thing about this world here. Why do people spend so much time and energy trying to change this planet if it's just a dream? So he was one of the sort of stereotypical gurus who lived on the, I can't say it, Arunachala Hill, and lived in this great I am that I am presence. He never sought people out. They just came to him. They felt his energy and was drawn to that enlightened state, but he never participated in the world and did not believe in participating in the world. He wasn't against it. He just didn't think that's where you're going to find your freedom. And as I was reading about that, I began to wonder, as I had this newborn in my arms, my natural instinct often is just to be very still and to be very quiet and not to participate. So I'm like, God, this is dangerous stuff for me to be reading right now, to sort of withdraw. And I thought of people like Carl Jung. Carl Jung is someone who spent a lot of time finding the meaning in this world. He's the symbolic meaning through all time and space and patterns that we carry in the race conscious, the collective unconscious, and how it shows up in our life. And so he's finding this deep spiritual meaning, and yet in his 70s he had a near-death experience. And in that near-death experience he leaves his body, and he feels first the pain of the attachments being pulled away, sort of in essence becoming naked. But then he feels this incredible joy and this incredible bliss, and he's about to enter this sacred hall of, it's just his deep, profound library beyond anything that he's ever experienced. And it's just transcendent. He can't wait to go in, and suddenly he's told it's not your time yet, and he's pulled back to earth. He sees his doctor leaving earth as he's coming back. And when he comes back into his body and he wakes up, he finds out his doctor did indeed die and make his transition. And Jung's response to being back in his body was total depression. The density, the heaviness of being back on this earth, of being here. He was just so excited about what was next, what was happening. And this world says, even with all that meaning he brought, with all that symbology, with all the stuff he was bringing, it still was nothing compared to what was next. And then one of my spiritual teachers, Paramahansa Yogananda, his thing he's always teaching is meditate, meditate, meditate. You get into these blissful states. If you really want to know what bliss is, go into these wonderful meditation states. So when I used to go to self-realization, they had 2-hour meditations every Friday, 2 and 3 hours on Sunday night, and sometimes they'd have 4 to 6 hours on Saturdays. So they were constantly bringing this silence, and we had a 2-hour meditation here on Thursday. I have to say it was blissful. And it is there. When we start really committing to that meditation practice and going into those deep states, it really is pure bliss. And sometimes it's not always fun to come back and say, oh, now I got to deal with my to-do list. So I had all this going on. Why do I really want to participate in this dream? It's just, I can't get, where's the desire coming from? And it was in that inquiry of just internally, that was in 2000, that I finished the book at the end of 2004, Ramana Maharshi's book, and then I had a dream in January of 2005, and in that, I call it a dream vision, because dreams are a lot of times just processing or they're symbolic, but sometimes we know when they're coming directly from spirit, from first cause. And in this vision dream, I, Jack, and Julian all died in a nuclear bomb. And I'm very clear that the reason why Jack and Julian died with me in this, because if they hadn't, I would have spent my whole time wondering, where are they and are they okay? But I was shown very clearly, they're fine, they're good. And then there was this great light. I was in the great light. It was the I Am presence. There was definitely a feeling of a presence, but no form of the I Am. And we were looking at the earth. And it was showing me the earth and what it was that I had left to do on this planet while I was still here. And it actually covered up the whole planet in clouds, and it showed me that I had to learn integral, theory. And then the vision dream was over, I was back in my body, and everything was normal. Now, I had read a little bit of Ken Wilber, who is the main articulator of integral theory up until this point, but I never thought I was going to read more. But after that vision dream, then I got totally focused, and that's why, for those of you who know that I spent a lot of time learning integral theory, that's exactly why, because that was clearly guided to me. So I, for 5 years, just immersed myself reading. I didn't read, he's written 1 million books. I've only read like 6 or 7 of them, and he has every week or month they had CDs and DVDs of conversations and interviews with everybody, and I listened to everything and all the audio, visual. In fact, just a little side story. They called their DVDs and CD sets that they sent out Integral Naked, because the idea is just to be naked in spirit, be open to everything. So I used to get these every week and listen to them. And Julian was just this big. I have no idea what age he was. I just know he was this big. And we were in Blockbusters at my mom's house, and we went to see a movie. We were trying to find a movie, and Julian, this big, yells out, "Mom, why don't you get one of those naked DVDs?" I'm like, yeah, there's nothing like my innocent boy asking me to get the naked DVDs in public. I wanted to die. How do you go around explaining to someone what that means? So I wish they had another name for those, but anyways. That's right. Humbling always. So what was interesting, though, in learning all this integral theory and just getting it cognitively first is why. The question kept coming. Well, actually, at first I just was learning, and I wasn't even thinking about why, because it was provocative, and I was trying to integrate it with our philosophy and all. So I had all the intellectual stimulation going on. But after several years into it, I started asking myself why. Why was it so important to the I Am presence that I learned this? I couldn't quite get the why that was necessary. And over time, it's become clear. I mean, because the spiritual teachers that I'm drawn to are always talking about heaven. Seek heaven. Seek first the kingdom of heaven. Lay your treasures up in heaven. Yogananda, meditate. Shunryu Suzuki, meditate. Wake up, wake up, wake up. And I was separating it from the world. That this dualistic world was something to resist. This dualistic world was never going to be a place to find joy. And so in my head, there was still a separation. There was the divine, and then there was this dualistic world. The metaphor, the prison. This is the dualistic prison, and I wanted to transcend it. And what I've had to learn and continue to grow in is that all of it is God. That even in the duality, it is God. That we are never outside of God. That reading today was just expand our minds. Every perception, and this is the challenge. This is where it all seems so nice when we say everything is God. Let's love everything. And at the same time, we have very different points of view and perspectives on things. And we love to argue and feel like God is a little bit more here than a little bit there. And what would happen if we started recognizing this is one of the main tenets of integral theory? There is partial truth to every perspective, and no perspective has the whole truth. So what if we started looking at everybody? So if you're a Democrat looking at Republicans as having partial truth, Republicans looking at Democrats as having partial truth, or independents, or agnostic have partial truth, atheists have partial truth, Hindus have partial truth, Christians have partial truth, that every perspective on this planet has partial truth. That's what this integral perspective, it's this expansion of start opening ourselves, and it seems so simple. It's fascinating being on the minister's listserv in a philosophy like this where everyone not just believes that life is all about oneness, but these are people who have committed themselves to oneness, and yet all the different perspectives and the fighting, and that it's just, you're not understanding oneness. This is how it is. No, you're not understanding oneness. This is what we mean by it. And I'm like, wow, we can sure find things to fight about, can't we? But that's how, because God is so diverse. It is infinitely diverse, and we want to hold on to ideas. And that's the essence of so many of the spiritual teachings is don't hold on, non-attachment. So how do we care about a world like this and not be attached? How do we know this transcendent freedom, be open to everything, and at the same time recognize, well, some things work actually a little bit better than other things. Also to discern, well, this is a little bit more effective. This is a little more inclusive than this. This seems to have a lot more walls. This path seems to be more open, so it resonates more true to me. How do I hold my perspectives that do seem more aligned with absolute truth, and at the same time be open to everything? How do I care when I know that the suffering, that the poor will always be with us? That if I'm in this dualistic world, there's always going to be pain. How do I care and not be completely overwhelmed and paralyzed? How do we live in this paradox? And the idea of integral freedom is that the more free we become, the more we do these meditation practices, that's why we start with what these spiritual teachers taught us, to seek first the kingdom of God, to meditate, to go do your spiritual practices, and then find that in every moment of every day of your life without judgment. Non-attachment is not judging. We can still discern. This is more effective for me, but we don't have to judge, because the judge immediately takes the infinite and confines it. It constricts it. And we want to experience the infinite in everything. So even though I may not like this because it seems less effective, that's different than saying it's bad, it's wrong, because then we have a wall, and then we've constricted. So we look at every moment, whatever is going on, moment by moment, without judgment, without attachment of how we think it should be, how we thought it should be different. And at the same time, we allow ourselves to care. But this could make it better. This morning I felt compelled, Spirit has its way, to watch a video on Joseph Chilton Pearce. Is anyone familiar with Joseph Chilton Pearce? Teresa? He wrote The Magical Child. He's written all sorts of things. He was really who brought the natural birthing back to America in the 70s. He wrote The Cosmic Egg. He wrote all sorts of things. The biology of nonviolence or transcending violence. Anyways, he's really big on developmental stages. And one of his main things is play. He was curious about play because he was noticing that in every culture there's play. All kids play. And he said, as he looked at the biology, he said, there's nothing in our biology that is, we don't have any superfluous, whatever, you know the word, right? Superfluous. Is that right? No, that doesn't sound right. Superfluous? Extra things that we don't need. So if all these cultures and all these traditions and all time play, it must have a purpose. So he was sitting there struggling with this idea of why play? Why do we need play? And he said he had all his research out. This wasn't in the video. This was something I had read in his book. He had all his research out. He'd spent hours upon hours researching, and he just couldn't get it. What's the purpose of play? And he suddenly, as he's just, it's that moment where you just give everything, you're just so exhausted, you relax. And in that moment, he said, I was thrown out of my body. I was suddenly in the divine, and I recognized that I was being thrown from one end of the universe to the other end of the universe, one end of the universe. And he said, then I realized I was a ball, and the universe was playing catch with me. And just the joy and the delight that the universe is always at play, that this is a playful universe. So as we're looking how to be integral, rather than looking at the seriousness of life, to recognize that it is a play. We are here to find the joy and the delight, even in the light, even in the darkness. To find, and we can't do that without the spiritual practices. That's why those are so important. But to find the delight in the mundane, to find the delight in the joy, because I have the main picture on my altar is a laughing Jesus. He's just, and I'll tell you, it can be really annoying when I'm in a bad mood. Because I'm like, whatever the mood is, and he's just like, I'm like, shut up. It's not that funny. But it reminds me that the absolute is in this cosmic joy, and when I'm stuck, it's okay, but it's temporary. Everything is temporary, but that doesn't mean it's not important. It's just like Julian was a baby, now he's 10. Now you could say he's more fully himself at 10, but we don't say when he was a baby it was irrelevant. Well, what's really important is when we become more fully ourselves. No, every stage is important. Everything that's happening on this earth, everything, every moment, every breath, every detail is important, and it passes. So the thing that Joseph Chilton Pearce points out is the importance of not getting caught up in failure. We need to feel safe. One of the reasons why we don't enjoy the process, even the joy when we're struggling, when we're in pain, and is all the feeling like we failed. Even in New Thought, because we believe so much in perfect health, if we don't have perfect health, I failed. Why don't I have perfect health? What have I done wrong? What thoughts have I created? What food am I eating? That big one is, what food am I not eating to cause this? If we're having emotional relationship problems, what have I done to create this problem? We really don't want to fail on this spiritual journey. I know all the principles. I know God is good. Why am I failing? We have to let this idea of failure go. And he talks about we impose this idea of failure on children. And Jack and I were talking about that this morning because one of the things we've noticed with Julian when he plays these sports, he loves sports. And when the team, I bet he's listening now, you heard his name. And when his team loses, he doesn't seem to care, he's just as happy. And we notice the parents' comments a lot of time and it's not just Julian, it's the kids. They just, da-da-da-da-da, let's go have ice cream. And I'm like, don't you care? And it's so much of the parents are imposing, you failed and you should feel sad and you should be hanging your head and you should let it at least impact you for the next hour rather than thinking immediately, what's my treat? So I was listening to this thing with Joseph Chilton Pearson, he says that doesn't enter children until they're about 12. That up until 11, they just do not have an inherently competitive streak. That's not that's not the developmental stage. They're there to learn. And they don't have a sense of failure because that doesn't even cross their mind. They're just wanting to explore, to create, to try new things. And as parents, we need to create that safe space to allow them to fail because they're not seeing it as failure. We see it as failure. So he was saying it's terrible to watch parents put that on coaches. He was really big on coaches doing this to kids too, that you have failed. If you've lost, why didn't you work harder? Why didn't you do this? And he said they won't even understand what you're talking about. They're just, well, I had a really good catch. They'll look at, they're just like, they're in a different place. And what he's saying is that if we miss that developmental stage, we don't know how to do that as adults. We don't know how to play without this devastating failure. So we're on this spiritual journey. We want to wake up. We want to see the God in everything. We want to open and experience. But look at how many times I fail throughout the day. Look how many times I judge. Look how many times I beat myself up. Look at I went another day without doing spiritual practices. Blah, 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 blah. You know, I was mean to my neighbor. I said the wrong things. I was unconscious. And oh my gosh, the amount of times we fail throughout the day, that can shut us down really fast because we failed so many times. I'm a hypocrite. I hear that a lot. I'm a hypocrite. I believe this one thing, but I act over here. That's because we have such a high standard of how we should be acting. This perfectionism, we don't know that failure is part of the perfection. All these times, every single day, the day I missed again from doing spiritual practices, I'm judging again. 2 minutes later, I'm judging again. I'm judging myself. I'm judging other people. I'm judging again. It's part of the joy. If we can just get joyful about what it is to be human. Do you watch a movie and do you feel judgmental? Or do you feel compassion? And you can just even start to laugh more. I was watching The Good Wife. George and Gail Staley kept saying, you have to watch it. And there was just this moment where her husband is running for political office. He's had affairs in the past. He's being accused again. It didn't happen, but it's just constantly part of the election process. Is your husband having an affair? And they're always interviewing her. They're always asking her, well, how do you feel about this? Because she's the good wife, stands by her husband. And then someone calls up and says, well, we've heard that he has a birthmark on his penis and it looks like Brazil. And she just broke out laughing. She just was laughing. She said, this is so ridiculous. What we do is, do you listen to yourself? And then they were saying when it's erect, when it's not erect. And I mean, they're just like, we can be so nuts. But that's the sense of humor we need. We need to laugh at our silliness, at our look at me. Look at what I'm doing again. And be delighted. Oh, I've made this mistake again. I'm such an idiot. But not an idiot in a bad way. And it just, silly. I'm so silly. And that's what this job is. If we're going to be integral, the expansion, the reason why I absolutely believe I had this vision is because where we are evolving as a planet is not to evolve into just transcendent. That was a really important part because it has to come first. We need to know the transcendence. If we don't know the transcendence, then we're just running around enjoying material form, and that doesn't ever last. But if we are tapping in, which everyone here is on the spiritual journey, you're doing, maybe not every day, but you're praying, you're meditating, you're doing your spiritual work in some way, talking to God in your head in some way, reading books in some way, saying affirmations in some way, you're thinking about it, you're on this spiritual journey doing the work. But the job isn't just about the transcending, it's about absolutely seeing it in every moment, in everything. So the invitation this week for today is to realize, to just delight in God today. That's it. To know, I love to say, have the best day ever. Because this is the only day we have. Tomorrow doesn't exist. Yesterday doesn't exist. This is it. Today is the day. Everything that happens today, every conversation, every thought you're having, every feeling, every physical experience, everything you eat, everything you drink, everything you choose and don't choose, and when you choose to stay silent, when you choose to speak, everything that is happening today is the life of God arising as you. And it's everything, every person that you see, even if you're watching them from a distance, you're just sort of observing them. They're part of your life of God. I love stretch your mind, include people of different disciplines. Notice the cash register. Just think about what their life is like, the person at the register or the car driving by you. I love to look at all the people as they're driving by me and say, wow, they have whole families and whole stories. Every person that comes by me. He has a story and a whole different way of looking at the world. Just start noticing, one more thing. The abundance of the world that's happening all the time. It's funny how Spirit works. So I said I love to be on Twitter. I love to get different perspectives. And yesterday I opened up to this woman. I don't even know who she is. I don't even know where she lives, but I follow her because she's funny. But and she posted a review of a play, and I don't even know the name of the play. It was something going on in London. But here's the idea of the play from what I was reading. The idea of the play is just it's this cognitive overload if we just paid attention to everything that was happening. So she said, as she was reviewing it, she goes, well, I'm going to use your play. So across the street there was this store, and then there was these trees, and there was this crosswalk, and then these people, and I was feeling this, and I was thinking that, and I was noticing there, and then I walked in, and she started doing the amount of everything that's happening in moment to moment. And then as she was watching the play, everything that was happening, all the stimuli, the lights, the walls, the air conditioning coming on and off. What's the music guy doing over there in the corner? There's just so much happening. And I'm feeling this, and I was thinking about that when I was, and then I was, it's just there's so much happening in every moment. So that's the invitation, is to feel the amount, the infinite that's happening at every moment, and recognizing we are immersed in this abundance, extraordinary, integral spiritual world where it's all God, and to start opening our hearts to see it as all God, to actually take it all in. This is all God happening all the time, and allow it to open us up to feel the love, and to, as I love what Wilbur said, is what we all long to do, which is to love everything, every person, every event, all of the time, in all places. Let's pray. Are you loving right now? Hearts wide open to whatever's going on? You notice any judgments right now? Just love them. We don't need to beat ourselves up for being judgmental. We got human minds. We like to discern things that we like and those things we don't like. It's all right. It's just part of who we are. This service is just who we are right now in this moment. In this room. And we let go of anything that we feel like we should be thinking, and we just, whatever we're thinking is fine. Let go of all attachments to the shoulds, any resistance to the shouldn'ts, and just let it all be absolutely, brilliantly okay. And that this is God. That this is God. There is nowhere to go. There is no heaven to get to. There is only this moment. All the heaven that has ever been and ever will be, all these transcendent universes and dimensions of being are within us right now. We have full access to all of them, and the more we allow our walls to dissolve, both in this world and in all worlds, we discover more and more of the infinite oceanic peace, bliss, joy, harmony, creativity, love that passes all human understanding. We allow it all in. The walls to drop. The walls that we have in this world and in all worlds. We allow ourselves to be bold enough to know that those experiences, those transcendent, nirvana, enlightened experiences are available to us even now. Just as we breathe and know that God is impossible to avoid, that we are in God now. So any cognitive ideas of what it has to look like, we just let them go. What it's supposed to be, we let it go. It's just this, now. Just this, now. It includes all those things in our life that we don't like right now, that we want to improve, and it includes all the things that we love about our life. We are immersed in God. We are immersed in love. We are immersed in beauty. We are immersed in harmony. We can never add to it. We can never take away from it. It is impossible. There's nothing we can ever do to change it. It is absolutely magnificent now. Now. And now. And so for the beauty and the harmony and the magnificence of this now moment, and knowing that as we move into the rest of our day, the power and the glory of the living God is continuing to reveal itself moment by moment, breath by breath, in all of its infinite, glorious richness and abundance, and that we are here to be the awareness and the experience of all this richness and abundance for all of this infinite good. I just say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, infinite and eternal one. And knowing it is this awareness that heaven is on earth now. In that joy and in that awareness, I just let this word be, knowing it is done as each and every one of us here this moment